Have you ever been hurt by someone, and then realized, weeks, months, maybe even years later, you're still hurting? Not because they're still in your life. Not because they're still doing anything to you. But because somewhere in the quiet moments, in the middle of the night, or in the space between one breath and the next, your own mind brings them back. Replays the words. Reopens the wound. Here's the question no one really asks: who is hurting you now? Because the person who betrayed you isn't here. The rejection happened in the past. The moment is gone. And yet, the pain is as sharp as ever. What if the most important truth Buddhism has ever offered isn't about detachment, or meditation, or letting go in some abstract spiritual sense, but something far more immediate? Something you can apply right now, in the middle of whatever you're carrying? What if the teaching is simply this? After a certain point, you are the one keeping the suffering alive. That's not a judgment. It's not to blame. It's an invitation to freedom. Stay with us today. Because what you're about to hear might change the way you relate to pain, forever. 1. The Buddha Story, the Second Arrow. Ancient wisdom on how we double our own pain. More than 2,500 years ago, the Buddha sat beneath the shade of a tree, surrounded by monks who had come to learn from him. One of them, a young monk named Ananda, approached him with a question that had been weighing on his heart. "Teacher," Ananda said, "I have been practicing diligently. I sit in meditation. I observe the precepts. And yet, when someone criticizes me, when I am treated unjustly, when I remember past wounds, the pain still comes. Why? Why does the pain still come?" The Buddha was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at Ananda with eyes full of compassion, not pity, but the kind of deep understanding that sees a person completely. He said, "Ananda, imagine a man walking through the forest. He is struck by an arrow. It pierces his skin. He cries out in pain. This is the first arrow." Ananda nodded, listening carefully. Now, the Buddha continued, "Imagine that same man, in the moments after being struck, reaches into his own quiver and shoots a second arrow, into the very same wound." Ananda's brow furrowed. "But teacher, why would anyone do that?" The Buddha smiled gently. "This is what the untrained mind does every single day. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life, loss, betrayal, rejection, illness, grief. These things come. They hurt. And that pain is real. But the second arrow, that is the one we fire ourselves. It is the voice that says, 'Why did this happen to me? I should have known better. I will never recover. People cannot be trusted. I am not enough.' The second arrow is the story we attach to the wound. And it is the second arrow, Ananda, not the first, that causes most of our long-term suffering." Silence settled over the group like morning mist. "I do not teach you to feel no pain," the Buddha said softly. "I teach you to stop shooting yourself." Ananda sat with that for a long time. Because it was simple. Almost too simple. But think about it, really think about it, and you begin to realize how true it is. The first arrow lands. Someone says something cruel. A relationship ends. A dream falls apart. A person you trusted lets you down completely. That pain. That's real. You don't choose it. It arrives. But then the mind begins its work. How could they do this to me? What's wrong with me? I'll never let anyone close again. This always happens. I don't deserve good things. One arrow becomes 10, 20, 100. And the wound, which might have healed on its own in time, stays open. Raw. Infected not by the original event, but by every thought we pour into it afterward. This is what the Buddha called dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness, the friction, the suffering that follows us not because life is cruel, but because the mind has not yet learned to release what it is gripping. 2. Everyday modern example, the story of Maya. When we become our own worst enemy. Let's bring this closer to home. Meet Maya. She's 34 years old, lives in a busy city, and works a job she's good at. 3 years ago, her closest friend, someone she'd known since college, betrayed her trust in a significant way. Shared a secret Maya had told her in confidence. The fallout was painful. The friendship ended. That was 3 years ago. But here's what Maya's mornings look like now. She wakes up. And before she even gets out of bed, her mind is already running the highlight reel. The moment she found out. What her friend said. What she should have said back. How foolish she feels for ever trusting her. She needs to be more careful now. How people are fundamentally selfish. By the time Maya gets to work, she's already exhausted, not from her commute, but from the internal war she's been fighting since 7 a.m. She's guarded with her colleagues. She keeps conversations shallow. When someone at work offers genuine kindness, she feels suspicious. What do they want? She's not being dramatic. She's being what she believes is realistic. But here's what's really happening. Her former friend hasn't thought about her in months. The original wound, real and valid as it was, has long since passed. But Maya is still there, still in that moment, still firing arrow after arrow into herself. She isn't being protected by her walls. She's being imprisoned by them. And the painful irony? The person who hurt her has moved on. Maya is the only one still standing in that burning room. Does this feel familiar? Maybe not Maya's story exactly, but something like it. A version of it. A person, a moment, a wound you keep returning to, even when part of you knows you should let it go. The Buddha's teaching wasn't just philosophy. It was a mirror. 3. Zen Story, the hot coal. What you hold on to, holds you. There is a short Zen story, simple as a breath, yet carrying the weight of a lifetime. A student came to his Zen master, fury burning in his eyes. "Master," he said, "I am so angry at my brother. He lied to me. He embarrassed me in front of our entire family. I cannot forgive him. I will not forgive him." The master listened carefully. Then he reached into the fire pit nearby and picked up a small, glowing coal with a pair of tongs. He held it up so the student could see it clearly. "Tell me," the master said, "if you picked this coal up in your bare hand and held it, intending to throw it at your brother, who would be burned?" The student blinked. "I would." The master set the coal down. "Resentment," he said quietly, "is the hot coal you carry while waiting for a chance to burn someone else." The student left that day without another word, because there was nothing to add. Resentment feels powerful. It feels justified. When we've been truly wronged, holding on to anger can feel like strength, like loyalty to our own pain, like a refusal to let the other person win. But the coal doesn't know who's holding it. It simply burns. And while you wait, planning how to make someone else feel what you felt, or simply refusing to heal because healing feels like letting them off the hook, the fire is yours to carry. The Buddha said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. That phrase has been repeated so many times that it can lose its impact. But sit with it for a moment. Drinking poison, waiting for someone else to die. That is exactly what unprocessed resentment does to the body, to the nervous system, to the heart. It doesn't punish the person who hurt you. It punishes you, daily, quietly, thoroughly. 4. The inner gate, training the mind to observe without being consumed. How Buddhist mindfulness creates unshakable inner peace. Now, here is where the teaching gets subtle, and this is the part that most people miss. When Buddhism talks about releasing pain and not holding resentment, people sometimes misunderstand this to mean, don't feel anything. Build walls. Go numb. Detach from people so they can't reach you. That is not the teaching. In fact, that approach, emotional shutdown, is just another form of suffering in disguise. Because when you close yourself off from pain, you also close yourself off from joy, from love, from genuine human connection. You don't become free. You become frozen. The Buddhist path is something far more nuanced and, truthfully, far more demanding. It asks you to feel everything, and yet not be controlled by any of it. There is a concept in Buddhist meditation practice sometimes called the witness mind, or, in Pali, sati, often translated as mindfulness, but more precisely as clear, present moment awareness. It's the part of you that can watch a thought arise, and watch it pass, without being swept away by it. Think of it this way. Imagine you are standing on the bank of a river. The river is flowing constantly, thoughts, emotions, memories, reactions, all moving past. The untrained mind doesn't stand on the bank. It falls into the river. It gets carried along by every current. Every angry thought becomes a whirlpool. Every painful memory pulls you under. But mindfulness practice, gentle, consistent, patient, teaches you to find the bank. To stand there. To watch the river flow. To say, I see that thought. I see that memory. I see that anger rising. I don't have to jump in. This is what some Buddhist teachers call the inner gate. Not a wall. Not armor. Not a locked door. A gate, something you can choose to open or keep closed. A moment of awareness between what happens to you and how you respond. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, expressed something remarkably similar from a completely different tradition. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, that tiny, precious pause between wound and reaction, is where freedom lives. And it can be trained. It can be cultivated. It grows with practice. 5. From pain to wisdom, letting hurt become your teacher. The Buddhist path of transforming suffering into strength. Here is a question worth sitting with. What if the most painful experiences of your life were not punishments, but invitations? Not in a toxic positivity sense. Not the kind of message that dismisses real hurt with a cheerful, everything happens for a reason. That's not wisdom, that's avoidance dressed up in spiritual clothing. But in a deeper sense, Buddhism teaches that suffering, dukkha, is the first of the Four Noble Truths. Not because life is inherently hopeless, but because facing suffering honestly is the beginning of wisdom. The Buddha didn't say, pretend you're not hurting. He said, look directly at the suffering. Understand its nature. Trace its roots. And you will find the path through it. When someone betrays you, what does it reveal? Maybe it reveals where you were giving your trust without discernment. Not because you were foolish, but because you were open, and openness is beautiful, and sometimes it gets wounded. Maybe it reveals how deeply you value loyalty. How much integrity matters to you. Maybe the experience is asking you, quietly, painfully, to become clearer about who deserves access to the most tender parts of your inner world. When rejection hits, and it does, in one form or another, for all of us, what is it teaching? Sometimes, this particular path wasn't yours. That this particular person wasn't your person. That which felt like a closed door was protecting you from something that wouldn't have served your growth. Sometimes, your sense of self-worth has become dependent on external validation, and the rejection is cracking open a space where a more stable, internal sense of worth can take root. This is not about being grateful for harm. It is not about excusing people who acted carelessly or cruelly. It is about choosing what to carry forward. Because you can carry the wound forward as a wound, and let it shape your personality, your relationships, your expectations of life, your capacity for love. Many people do. And it is understandable. The wound is real. Or, you can carry the lesson forward. The clarity. The refinement. The knowledge of your own values and boundaries. The compassion for yourself that comes from having survived something hard. This is what the Dharma calls prajna, wisdom. No information. Not intellectual knowledge. But the understanding that is born from honest, conscious experience. There is a beautiful and ancient image in Buddhist teaching, the lotus flower. The lotus grows in muddy water. Its roots are buried in the dark sediment at the bottom of a pond. And yet, it rises, slowly, through the murk. And it blooms at the surface in astonishing beauty and purity. The mud is necessary. Without it, there is no lotus. Your pain, the betrayal, the rejection, the loss, is not incompatible with your peace and your blossoming. It is, in fact, the very soil from which your deepest wisdom grows. No mud, no lotus. Thich Nhat Hanh. 6. Sacred Teachings, Buddhist quotes on suffering, healing, and inner freedom. Wisdom from the Dharma to carry with you. Let these words settle into you like water finding its level. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. This teaching, often attributed to the Buddhist tradition, draws the essential line. Life will bring pain. It always does. Loss, disappointment, illness, endings, these are woven into the fabric of human experience. They are the first arrow. But suffering, the prolonged, self-reinforced anguish of clinging to what has passed, that is a choice. Not an easy choice, but a choice. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. The Buddha. This is the teaching most people least expect from Buddhism. We imagine Buddhism as a tradition of detachment and self-discipline. And it is, but it is also a tradition of profound self-compassion. You are not asked to endure hurt in silence and call it spiritual strength. You are asked to turn toward yourself with kindness. To become, in the words of many teachers, your own gentle guardian. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. The Buddha. This is perhaps the most radical claim in all of Buddhist thought, and neuroscience is beginning to catch up with it. The stories we tell ourselves about what happened to us, about who we are, about what we deserve, these stories are not neutral descriptions. They are active forces. They shape neural pathways. They create the lens through which every future experience is filtered. Change the story, not to something false, but to something truer, something wiser, and you begin to change the mind. And the mind, transformed, transforms everything. If you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah was one of the great forest monks of the 20th century. And this simple teaching carries a lifetime of wisdom. Not a sudden, dramatic release. Not an overnight transformation. Just, a little. A little gentler with the memory. A little less time in the replay. A little more space between the wound and the story. A little peace. And then, slowly, a little more. In the end, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. Let that last phrase land, things not meant for you. Not every person who enters your life is meant to stay. Not every opportunity that closes was a loss. Not every no was a rejection of you. Sometimes it was life, quietly redirecting you toward something truer. The grace is in the release. 7. Practical reflection. 3 ways to begin living this teaching today. Simple Buddhist practices for everyday healing. This is not about perfection. These are gentle invitations, not commands. First, notice the second arrow. The next time you feel pain, whether old or new, pause. Just pause. Ask yourself, is this the first arrow? Or am I now firing into myself? You don't have to stop the thought immediately. Just seeing it is the beginning. Awareness is the first act of freedom. Second, practice the gap. When something triggers you, a memory, a comment, a situation, try to find a small space before you react. 1 breath. That's all. Just 1 breath between what happened and what you do next. In that breath, you are no longer a machine responding automatically. You are a conscious being with a choice. Third, ask the wisdom question. When you face something painful, instead of only asking, why did this happen to me? Try also asking, what is this asking me to become? Not immediately. Not in the rawness. But when you're ready. Let the question open a door instead of closing one. Closing reflection, you are not your wounds. You came into this life whole. Open. Curious. Without the weight of old hurts, without the walls that would come later. And then, As life does, things happened. People disappointed you. Experiences leave marks. And slowly, perhaps without even noticing, you began to carry them. Not because you were weak. Because you were human. But you were never meant to carry all of that forever. The Buddha's entire teaching, across 45 years of sharing the Dharma, can be distilled into this: there is suffering, and there is a way through it. Not around it. Not over it. Through it. With awareness. With compassion. With the willingness to stop shooting the second arrow. No one can reach inside you and do that for you. No spiritual teaching, no matter how wise, will do it automatically. It requires your participation. Your willingness to turn toward the wound, rather than away from it. Your courage to ask, who am I without this story? And the answer, when you finally find it, will surprise you. Because underneath the wounds, underneath the walls, underneath the stories of betrayal and rejection and not enoughness, there is something that was never hurt. Something quiet. Something steady. Something that has been watching all along, the part of you that is aware, that is present, that is more than the sum of everything that has happened to you. Buddhism calls this your true nature. And it cannot be betrayed. It cannot be rejected. It cannot be diminished by what anyone has ever done or said or failed to give you. It is already whole. It is already free. You just have to remember. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The Buddha. If something in this video touched you, if a single word landed in a place that needed to hear it, know that you didn't find this video by accident. Take a moment right now and share this with one person who might need this reminder today. You never know whose morning you might change. And if you'd like to continue this journey, exploring Buddhist wisdom, mindfulness, and the quiet art of healing from the inside out, subscribe to Buddha Coha. Every week, we gather here to share teachings that are ancient in their roots but immediately alive in our everyday lives. Click the subscribe button. Turn on the bell. And we'll walk this path together. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. The lotus is already rising.